Welcome csc235 to ex6. We're going to mess around with arrays a little bit, and we'll do that in CodePen. And I'm in CodePen right now. I'm at the main page, and I am logged in. So make sure you log in. And if you go to your profile, you can go to your pens and your collections. You might have made a collection for 235 already for csc235. If you go up here, you're just going to see collections in here of other pens. So you want to make sure that you go up here to your profile, go to your collections, and if I scroll down, and you could put a picture up there, they call it an avatar. They asked for one that's 512 by 512, or I think I had one that was 250 by 250, so that works fine. And down here's my 235. I only have one pen inside it, and that was the one we did last time for this class. So I'll go inside here, and then what I'll do is just make a new pen. That's the one I made for the one we did when we were just trying out working with CodePen. And I'm going to make a new pen. And we're going to work with arrays in here a little bit. And we're probably going to work with it this way with the code on the side. For now, we're probably not even going to use much preview. Let's take a look at arrays for a minute. We did use arrays when we did, I think, EX2 with our dates. We had to make an array for the days of the week, and then we made an array for the months. And we didn't do all the months just because we didn't want to type so many in. So we only did like 6 here. And the way arrays work is you declare it like a variable, but it's really an object. It's called an array. And you can do it like this, where it says new array. Then you could list all the elements in the array with their index number, starting with 0. So the first day of the week would be 0, and that's the way they would end up. And the easy way to do it is actually just declare an array object with a var, and then you just put it in square brackets. And these are strings divided by commas. And that was our arrays, and they actually are automatically assigned the index numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the easy way to set up an array, and then you could basically, target those index numbers out of the array and kind of pull up those values. So we're going to do that a little bit. So I'm going to go back to my pen, and now I want to start with something. I don't have anything here, so I'm going to go to JavaScript and for W3 schools, and what we're going to start off with is we're going to take a look at arrays. So if you go to arrays, they'll show you some things about arrays. Arrays are basically lists that are kind of collected together as an object. They could be numbers, they could be strings. And make sure you read through this stuff about arrays. You should know this. I'm not going to read this to you. Make sure you read it. Make sure you know about arrays. There's not a lot here, but you should just kind of go through it and know it a little bit. But one of the things I want to point out here is they do have a property of array called length, where it'll tell you how many items are in the array. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go to this one that says length, because we are going to use this property. And I'm going to click on the Try It Yourself button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this code in here. Remember, in CodePen, we don't need all the code. We don't need all of these declarations and tags and everything. I'm just going to use a little bit of code here. And I'm going to take the P tag, and I'm going to take the JavaScript. And I'm just going to copy it out of here. Now we could work here, but I'm going to go back to CodePen. And we don't need any CSS, so I'm actually going to minimize the CSS editor. And I'll drag up the JS. And I'll just copy, or I'll paste everything in the JS. Now this is HTML, so I need to take this out of here. And I'll put it up in HTML. And remember, we don't need script tags, so we'll just take them out of there. And I'll just kind of drag these up. And what you'll see over here is the number 4. Because if you remember how this works, and we've been doing this, this basically says document get element by ID demo, which is this paragraph up here. And it says inner HTML, which writes HTML that is basically equivalent to or is set to fruits.length. Now it's coming out as 4 right now because that's what that means. It's actually, there's 4 items in this group, so it's showing a 4. Now you could put other things here. If you took .length off there, if you took that property off of there and just did fruits, and there it is. Let me just backspace, and I'll put the semicolon again so it rewrites. What it does is it puts those strings in there. So it puts banana, orange, apple, mango. It takes those strings and it just kind of puts them together in there. So it's taking that array, which is called fruits. This is an array. It's called var fruits. And in the square brackets, those are the elements in the array. And basically, our inner HTML is writing that out. Now, it doesn't have spaces in there because we don't have spaces in the strings. Each string is basically thrown together, so it's just putting one after the other, separated by commas. So, and we're actually not going to use this. So I'm actually going to take this out right now. And you might say, well, how are you going to take this out? Oh, actually, before I do that, one other thing. If I go fruits and I put a bracket and I put 1, it shows orange because this one is 1. Remember, this is 0, 1, 2, 3. There's 4. The length is 4 because there's 4 elements in this array, but that is the index number 1 because it starts with 0. So just, if you change those, if I put 3 here, it should put mango. And if I put 4, since there is no 4, you should get something like undefined because it can't find it. So, and actually, we're not going to use this. So I'm going to get rid of this right now. And I'm going to get rid of this. And you might say, well, how are we going to see things with just JavaScript? If we're not using any HTML, how are we going to see it? And what we're going to do is we're going to do something called the console. We're going to try this out. And you could use this in a browser, but we're going to use it here. And it just kind of gives out messages. In ActionScript, we've used something called trace, where it uses a console type area to kind of give us messages. And sometimes you could use this to kind of debug or error check. And we're going to use it just to kind of print out values for us. So that's all we're going to do. Instead of doing it on the page, instead of doing like a alert window or anything like that, we're just going to use the console. And the way it works, I'll just put this after, you use this term called, and it's console.log, and then whatever you put in the parentheses is going to be what shows up here in the console. And right now there's nothing in here. So if you put banana in here, it should say banana. And that's because we put a string in here. It's not using this one. It's actually just using a string. If I took the quote out, and I should put a semicolon here. Right now it's not showing anything because banana it's looking at banana as a variable, and we don't have a variable named banana. When it has quotes, it'll show the word banana. So we don't have that right now. But anyway, that's the way that kind of works out. So let's say if I did fruits, that's the array. It's showing the array right now. It's actually showing the brackets in the console. So it's showing us that it's a full array, showing exactly what's in the array right now. And let's say we did fruits.length. And there it's showing 4. So it's showing a number 4. Notice the number is showing up in orange, whereas the strings are showing up kind of in this kind of lime green color. So it's showing me the length right now. And also, just to make sure it's working, if I want to do fruits and I want to do a number, like I'll put 0 in here, it should show me banana. And that's what it's showing me right now. And you can see it's showing the recent ones, and the most recent one is on the bottom. So it's showing me banana right now. So, that's not that exciting. We could show the different things in here. But what we really want to do is let's see if we could kind of use a number to kind of match up, to pull from there. And what we're getting to and what we're going to be doing in our next kind of project exercise is using a random number, which kind of is neat because we could kind of make games with it. JavaScript has a way to make random numbers, so I'll show you how to do that. And that way we can kind of use arrays and random numbers together a little bit, and it'll be a little more interesting and fun to work with. All right, I'm back to W3 Schools, and instead of going to arrays, I'm going to go down to random. There's something called a random number, and it generates a random number. And this is the first one we'll look at. It does math.random, and I think if you look at math, it might show you random in there as well. There's all these different math things, and we will look at some of these. But I'll go back to random because this one's kind of interesting. It generates a random number, and you have to do something with it. You can, if it generates, it's like a variable. You can't do, unless you do something with it or display it or put it in something else. It's not going to do anything. But just to be aware, it's like this. It's going to be called math.random. It'll use a capital M, and it'll be .random. And you don't put anything in here. It actually just generates one. And be aware that what it says here is it returns a random number between 0 and 1. And it's exclusive of 1, and it's inclusive of 0. So it's between 0 and 0.99999, whatever. That's not too much fun, because if you said, hey, I'm thinking of a random number between 0 and 1, but not including 1, and you had to use an integer, you'd only have one choice. So we're going to try to make this one a little more interesting, but those are the numbers that come up. So we're going to use this first. If you want to copy it, fine. I'd recommend just typing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to keep my console log stuff down at the bottom, and I'm going to hit return, and I'm going to make a random number, and I'll make it a variable so I can do something with it. So I'll say var, and I'll just give it a name like randnum. I'll use camel case and put a capital N, and I'll say randnum equals and I'll put math.random. And you have to use the parentheses, and I should use a semicolon at the end. So random. Now I'm not doing anything with random. It's just showing banana over and over here because that's the 0 index of my array. So let's say I just want to have random in there. I could put a variable in there, and it'll show the variable, and there it is. 0.05999. Now look how many digits that is. That's not a lot of fun looking at a number like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to generate a random number that's like from, let's say, from 0 to 10 or something. You could do that. Or in this case, we might actually do it. Actually, let's add another fruit here. Let's add a pear. So at least we have 5. So I'll put a pear in here. That'll make our length 5, and this one will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll put that in there, and you can see it's still generating random numbers. And again, they're only going from 0 to 0.99. And if you kept doing it, it would keep, you'd eventually get to one of those. But we don't want to use this many decimal places, and we'd probably want to go up higher than that. So just for example, let's just skip the array for now, and let's just say we wanted to generate a random number that's from 0 through 10. All right, what you could do is you could basically take this and multiply it by 10. So I'll do this separate. You could put it all together, but I'm going to say now that we have random number already declared as a variable, you could just use random again and just set it to a different value. I'm going to say random equals, and what I'll do is I'll just make it random, the same variable, times 10. And I'll put a semicolon. And what that should do, you can see the numbers down here already. It's already generating numbers. And to make it keep coming up, you could just keep, putting a semicolon again or just moving around. It should generate. And you can see it's generating ones here, 8.8, 4.9. And what we want to do is we actually want to round it to an integer. An integer meaning it's just going to be a single number. It won't have any decimal places. Now to do that, you have a couple ways to do that. So I'll go back here, and this is the math.random. And they'll even talk to you about actually using some of these things, math.floor, math.seal. But if you go to math, you could see a bunch of these here. Now we're not going to use pi, but we may use these two. Seal, think of ceiling and floor. So there's seal and floor, and notice they're set up the same way with a capital M and then a dot, and then that property there is kind of with a small letter or lowercase letter, and then parentheses. And this one returns a value of x rounded up to the nearest integer. Rounded up. The important thing here is it rounds up. So this one rounds, seal rounds up, floor rounds down. So whatever you get to, it rounds down. So, depending what we're going to do here, if we want to go a number from 1 to 10, this is what we do. We would round up. So if I went back to CodePen, now up is seal. So let's say I wanted to do, I'll do this one more place here. I'll do random. It's still random. We didn't change our variable name. And I'll just do random. And inside, the way this works is you do math.seal, and then you wrap that around like that. And what should happen, there we got a 9. And I'll just go here and put it back. There's a 9. There's a 7. There's a 6. I got an error. There's a 7. So if it's rounding up, we should have 1. And eventually we should have, I think we should have 10. Okay, I just want to show you, I did get a 10 here. So we did get to 10 by using seal. If we wanted to go from like 0 through 9, we would do floor. Now, one thing I just want to show you here also is we did these separate. We took random and we did a math random. We generated a random number from 0 through 0.9999 up, but not including 1. Then we multiplied it by 10, and then we did the seal. Now we could put this all in one statement. We don't have to do these separate statements like this. What we could do is put it all together. So I'm just gonna delete these. I could put the times 10 here, and that's the first part. And then I could wrap the whole thing in a seal or a floor. So I would have to wrap the whole thing around that. And that would do the same thing that I just did, except it puts it on one line. It just kind of wraps the seal with parentheses around that. So you have double parentheses. So whatever's inside here is the thing that's being rounded up. So we're taking math.random, whatever that number, times it by 10, and then we're rounding the whole thing up. We're wrapping that in there. So as long as we keep doing that, we'll just keep getting a number from 1 through 10 down here in our console over here. Now, just again, our console, you can clear things out of your console. You could close the console if you lose the console and you forget where it is, because remember, this is like your preview area, and we don't have anything because we have no HTML or anything that's displaying. If you go to console, it'll open that up again, and if you just kind of click here and backspace and put your semicolon again, it should show you the numbers that are generated here. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to try to use a random number and try to generate different things from here. You know, we can generate a random number, you know, that's fine, but we're going to try to generate random numbers and generate a random fruit from our little group here. So we're going to do that next. So let me take a quick break, and with part 2, we'll kind of finish this up, kind of using a random number to generate elements from an array.